Not terribly long ago, Mono Blue Tempo was one of the most infamous decks in Standard. Is it possible that a peasant version of the deck could work in the current Explorer metagame? Hello everybody, and welcome to another episode, my first episode, of Card Realm's weekly deck tech. I'm your host, Drac V, and the Peasant format is a powerful, budget-friendly mix of only common and uncommon cards, and it is one of my favorite ways to build MTG cubes. So the deck we're going to talk about today excites both me and my wallet. I'd like to start by giving credit to Humberto for writing and allowing me to use this article on which the video is based. With that said, let's take a look at Mono Blue Tempo for Arena's newest format, Explorer. Let's run down the list together before we get into the gameplay and sideboard tech. The main deck consists of 20 creatures, 4 Spectral Sailor, 4 Pteramander, 4 Siren Storm Tamer, 4 Brindborn Cutthroat, and 4 Merfolk Trickster. 6 enchantments, 2 Fly, and 4 Curious Obsession. There's a total of 16 instants, 4 Slip Out the Back, 4 Fading Hope, 4 Essence Capture, and 4 Unsubstantiate. Rounding out the 60 is 18 Islands. This list is based upon the deck Autumn Burchett used to win the first Mythic Championship, but with adaptations to add newer releases, reduce the number of rares, and lower the mana curve a bit. In many ways, this archetype is reminiscent of the classic legacy vintage decks known as Fish, which were based on flat-out tempo. In short, advancing your game plan while delaying the opponent's. The main proactive plans involve 2 approaches. The first is to get a flying threat on turn 1, enchant it with Curious Obsession on turn 2, and swing in for damage and card draw, effectively setting the clock while protecting those resources with counter magic and other interaction. To add more consistency to our plan, we have a number of low-cost creatures that have additional value attached to them, such as drawing cards with Spectral Sailor, protecting threats with Siren Storm Tamer, removing blockers with Merfolk Trickster, or setting a fast clock you think will go long with Ravnica Allegiance All-Star Pteramander. To delay the opponent's plans, I've opted for a core of spells that do just that while costing minimal mana. First, we have Fading Hope to return creatures to their hand or protect your own from removal, Essence Capture to counter creature spells, since archetypes like Naya Winota and Mono Green Ramp with Cavalier of Thorns and Rakdos Sacrifice are on the rise, plus Unsubstantiate, a pseudo-time walk effect against heavier spells as a means to delay a crucial turn for 2 mana, thus filling a similar role as Memory Lapse used to before it was banned from Historic. Mystical Dispute is a strong addition versus blue-based controls, but it also works incredibly well against mid-range pilots who are looking to use higher-costed cards and who will commonly try to close the game with one-for-one trades, then accumulate card advantage. Splitting, Negate, and Spell Pierce offers a bit of variety when you are forced to play more proactively and don't always have 2 mana for Negate, in situations where the game extends and Spell Pierce turns out to be of little use. Aether Gust is an extremely comprehensive answer against a number of archetypes that define Explorer today, such as Mono Red Aggro, Rakdos Sacrifice, and Mono Green Ramp. Lantern of the Lost was the best uncommon answer I could find for dealing with archetypes based on graveyard interactions like Rakdos Sacrifice and Parhelion 2 lists. Your focus when piloting this deck is to always be one step ahead of your opponent, even if that means having to forego casting a creature to respect a possible greater threat on turn 4, or even spending a Fading Hope on something less relevant just to increase the pressure in later turns. Be cautious to never put yourself in the control position without having an established clock first, though. You will never be fast enough to turn the tables if your opponent stabilizes, and you will end up giving them too much time to recover. Slip Out the Back can be used on any creature. This makes it possible to use it in the opponent's turn to remove a blocker, and it can also be cast against Winota, Joiner of Forces, before they declare attackers to delay her triggers. Merfolk Trickster removes abilities from creatures it taps, however, it doesn't remove abilities that are already on the stack or that trigger before resolving. Keep this in mind when targeting a Mayhem Devil, for example. Fading Hope can and should be used to protect your most important creatures, especially those that generate value in the long game, like Pteramander and Spectral Sailor. Pteramander's Evolve ability can be used at instant speed, included during the combat phase before attackers are declared. This may catch some opponents off guard and can swing a game wildly in your favor. Siren Storm Tamer counters spells or abilities that target you or a creature you control. This ability can be a lot more useful than it seems. Our sideboard is pretty generic and only focuses on the more prominent matchups we can expect to see in the ranked queues. Rakdos Sacrifice. Put in 3 Aether Gust, 3 Lantern of the Lost, and 2 Negate. Take out 2 Fly, 4 Storm Tamers, and 2 Spectral Sailors. Rakdos Sacrifice is probably our worst matchup because Mayhem Devil dominates the game too quickly, and the Cat Oven combo pretty much erases any clock we had put in place. Your best bet is to focus growing creatures like Terramander and Brineborn Cutthroat, as well as looking to enchant a creature with Curious Obsession as early as possible to start accumulating value. If you're facing Jund Sacrifice, this matchup is even worse because Gilded Goose is a blocker, ramp, life gain, all on a single card. Next up, versus Azorius Control, in 4 Mystical Dispute, 2 Negate, and 2 Spell Pierce. Take out 4 Essence Capture and 4 Fading Hope. We are noticeably favored in this matchup, especially post-sideboard, because you have the freedom to manage the game most of the time, and you just need to know how to play around the right counter spells at instant speed to dominate the game. Your biggest concern are the various sweepers in the format, and planeswalkers like Teferi, Hero Dominaria, and the Wandering Emperor, but you can play around these spells easily by using your counterspells and bounces effectively. Next up, versus Mono Red Aggro, put in 4 Aether Gust, 2 Negate, and 2 Spell Pierce. Take out 4 Essence Capture and 4 Unsubstantiates. Essence Capture comes out of this game because your mana investment in it will likely be higher than the opponent's creature, and nearly everything we want to counter in this game are direct damage spells and planeswalkers. Your opponent will likely be trying to use cards like Stomp, the adventure half of Bone Crusher Giant, and Play with Fire to remove your creatures, so remember to play around these spells with Flip Out the Back and Fading Hope, which can even serve as removal against the opponent's Bone Crusher Giant if Stomp had missed its target. Your true enemy in this game is the opponent's long-term value, namely the Planeswalkers. Do everything you can to not let them resolve, and don't be afraid to trade your blocker against a Bomat Courier. Eventually your opponent will run out of gas and you can dominate the game from the skies. As is common with Mono Red, not everything will always go according to plan, and this is a very vulnerable deck for a strategy based on removal spells accompanied by a proactive clock, so don't stress out if everything goes wrong, just take your lumps and move on. That's going to be all for today, folks. Mono Blue Tempo turns out to be an efficient yet powerful archetype that, if piloted well, manages to outperform a significant portion of existing archetypes in today's Pioneer and Explorer metagame. Obviously, the limitations of a budget list are notorious when facing well-established archetypes in their 40-plus rares, but for an archetype composed of only commons and uncommons, I was quite satisfied with the results, and we suspect that you will be as well. If you'd like to see Humberto's upgrades to this deck or the full article, or deep dives into whatever format you play, check out all the content over at cardsrealm.com, and if you are interested in more articles like this, be sure to leave a comment, click all the buttons below, and we'll try to be back with another budget deck proposal so you can enjoy Explorer without depleting your wildcard reserves. Thanks for watching this week's Deck Tech, and from myself and everyone over at Cards Realm, brew decks, have fun, and we'll see you next time. Peace.